I'm keeping it in mind, thinking about whether we want to keep them in our house. All right, with that, let me go right to our VIP line, talk with my friend Steve Moore, who has had, let's say, an interesting last couple of weeks. Steve, the last time we talked, about an hour after the last time we talked, President Trump tweeted that he was considering you for the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, perhaps not knowing that he was about to turn your life into a living hell. How have you been?
Look, I'm doing great. I love this president. I mean, by the way, throughout this whole ordeal, where the left tried to take me down, Trump was the last. He kept saying, keep fighting, keep fighting. I love that about him. He never backs down. He never gives in. And, I'm saddened about this because I do think I could have made a difference at the Fed. I think I could have changed their philosophy to more, pro-growth. And of course, that's why the left didn't want me on the Fed, was because they were afraid, as the Wall Street Journal said I thought an editorial that said it quite kindly was, and accurately, which is the left didn't want to beat me because my ideas are wrong. They wanted to beat me because my ideas are right. And, I feel totally vindicated, by the way, when the jobs number came out on Friday. As you know, Ross, I helped write the tax plan. I helped Trump as a senior economic advisor to the campaign. And what's so interesting is all my critics, who were trying to take me down, Steve Moore's so wrong on this and that. I mean, it was Paul Krugman, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Harvard faculty. I mean, can you imagine a group of people that have been more wrong than them on the economy? Remember, Ross, they were the people who said if Donald Trump was elected, we're going to have a second Great Depression.
Yeah. And a few people listened to them for about 5 minutes after the election returns came in the middle of the night on election night, which was one of the best buying opportunities in the history of the stock market, actually, ever.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories is Krugman at about 7:30 a.m. on the morning after the election was asked when the stock market will recover, and he said never. And, of course, in two hours later, it went up by 700 points. So these guys aren't too good. But, I am disappointed, Ross, and I'm not a quitter. I hate pulling out, and I hate letting the bad guys win. There's just no path forward at this point. I mean, I've given probably hundreds of speeches over my lifetime, probably 1,000 interviews, 2,000 articles. So I had a paper trail a mile long, and people were, and me for a lot. I mean, how long have we known each other? At least 25 years.
At least, yeah. I want to say late 80s.
Yeah, and I have a pretty flamboyant personality, and I'm pretty outspoken. I'm politically incorrect, and if I had any inkling that the left was going to make a big deal out of a Federal Reserve, but this isn't the Supreme Court, right?
Right.
I would have told the president, look, I've got I got a paper trail so long. I don't know if this is a good idea, but I honestly thought, well, it'd be a one-day story. Trump taps Steve Moore for the Fed, and then then there would be a hearing, and I'd be in. I didn't anticipate the onslaught, and it's actually kind of flattering, actually, that they were that afraid of me, that they had 7 full-time reporters investigating everything in my life, including going into my divorce, record. And
yes, can we talk about that for a second? So, look, I get that they don't like your economics because you're right and they're wrong. I thought it was really funny when they said, oh, but he doesn't have a PhD in economics, and then other people said neither does the chairman of the Fed. Right.
And he doesn't even have a master's in economics.
And then
I do. But by the way, that was one of my virtues, is I don't have a PhD.
Yeah, that's right.
PhDs in economics who screwed the whole thing up.
You know what's funny, Steve? This is just sort of a tangent, but I mean, you know me from my days in the trading pits in Chicago, and the people who lost the most money in the trading pits were the PhDs.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they didn't understand the real world.
They don't. They believe the growth. They believe in this Keynesian economic model, and that government causes growth in the economy, and that you can just print dollars, and it's going to create growth. And they also believe that if you have too much growth, and we have a lot of growth under Trump, we got to stop it out by raising interest rates, and that's something Trump has railed against, and I'm with him on that. I mean, when you have a supply side expansion where you produce more goods and services, that doesn't cause prices to rise; it causes prices to fall. And I don't understand why a PhD economist can't understand that very simple concept. If the economy produces more apples, the prices of apples falls, it doesn't rise.
Well, it's because their brains are bigger than the market.
Exactly.
That's how they behave. But listen, I want to focus on one thing just for a moment.
Yeah.
And it was so frustrating for me. I can't even imagine how it felt for you to have these. I want to say a word I can't say on the radio. Go unseal your divorce records that your ex-wife, not just you, your ex-wife wanted sealed.
Yeah, it was a total invasion of our privacy. We went to the courthouse in Fairfax, Virginia, to make sure that it remained sealed, and the judge said, well, both the spouses here want to keep this sealed. And by the way, anyone who's gone through it, and I have a great relationship, not a great relationship, but a good, healthy relationship with my ex-wife now. We do stuff with our kids together all the time. They're older now, but, it's a cordial, friendly relationship. And, we went and we said, look, people will say things during divorce settlements, that can be mean and nasty. And, those are trying times for a family. And, but they basically said, oh, we think we have to, make this public record. And we're like, why? And they said, well, because Steve Moore is now a public figure. And I was like, well, still, this is a private document. It's personal. It has nothing to do with how the Fed should set interest rates, right? And so they did. And, of course, once they got the records, they splattered it all over the newspapers. And that was traumatic for all of my family. But this is the way these people are. They are not good people. They will stop at nothing. And by the way, they knew a lot of the stuff was not true in some of the divorce, things that were said, and yet they still published it, even though they knew it wasn't true.
Right. And then these days you add on top this sort of hypersensitive, hair trigger, Me Too movement kind of thing. And then you get female and even some male Republican senators who should know better caving in right away, which I also found disappointing. But anyway, I guess.
Well, one of the things that comes, because I did, look, I wrote some columns 20 years. And by the way, the columns, they were going back 20, 25 years, and you can say things today. I mean, you can't say things today that you could say 20 years ago. I mean, times have changed a lot.
A lot, yeah.
And look, I do think, I said I wrote some stuff that was insensitive. I wish I hadn't.
Yeah.
And I apologize for that. But the thing that's so interesting is you can't. I wrote a humor column once every couple of weeks for the National Review, and so it was all just tongue in cheek. And I made fun of everyone and everything, including myself, in these columns. And you read them now. Oh my gosh, he hates women. He hates black people. He hates short people. He hates Jews. He hates Polish people. I mean, it was, and they knew that these were just humor columns, but something's happened in our society where you can't say anything anymore without someone being offended.
And as a short Jew, I can stand up for the fact that you have no problem with short Jews, Steve. So let me ask you a question. So you, a while back, you had been on Fox. You went to CNN, and you and I talked about that. And one of the things that you said was you wanted to be able to get this message of pro-growth and free market economics to an audience that didn't normally get that message. Then, off CNN, while you're going through this process, they weren't too kind to you. Are we going to see you on CNN again? And if not, what do you think? Where do you think we're going to see you?
Well, I certainly thought, I was under contract with CNN for 2 years, and, they had just signed me for another year-long contract. They wanted to do 2 more years. They loved my commentary. They loved, my presence on the network, and, got high marks from the president of CNN. And then, what happened was, 2 days after, I was nominated for this, they were the lead instigators of a lot of building up the dirt against me. I'm like, wait a minute. If I'm such a horrible person, why did you have me on for 2.5 years as your chief economic correspondent?
Mm-hmm.
And so, it was, what's the old saying? If it weren't for double standards, liberals wouldn't have any standards at all. And it really is true that, wait a minute. 3 days after I'm nominated, now I'm the worst person in the world when, you just gave me these, high-flying marks. I mean, I thought that was hypocritical, to say the least.
So I think so too. So does that mean you're not going back to CNN?
Well, I doubt it. I'd never say never. I mean, things change over time, and
yeah.
I think for now I'll be a free agent. And I told the president, by the way, was fully supportive of me. I mean, I called him a couple weeks ago. I said I think I might have to drop out, because I was under such assault, and when the divorce stuff came out, and he said, "Are you kidding? Get back in the ring." I felt like that bloody and bruised, prize fighter in the 7th round, and I can't go in. The manager's pushing you back out into the ring.
Wow.
That's the way. I mean, I really admire that about Trump. He's a fighter. You may not agree with Donald Trump a lot, but the guy is a winner. He's a fighter. He doesn't give out. He doesn't give in. And I think that's a really, great quality he has.
All right,
letting him down.
Let me make our last question about economics. Yeah. What do you make in the last couple of days of President Trump's aggressive tweet about Chinese tariffs, then the market going down but recovering yesterday, looking down again this morning? What do you think is going to happen here, and do you think Trump is approaching it the right way?
You know, it's funny. I think Trump is a master negotiator, and he keeps going back and forth from being Mr. Tariff Man to wanting to get a deal done.
Right.
I think that it's all brinksmanship on his part. I mean, he likes to keep his opponents and his adversaries off, on shaky ground. He likes to keep them not knowing exactly what he's thinking. And I think this is basically negotiating on his part. I always say if you want to understand Donald Trump, you have to read his book, The Art of the Deal. And he's trying to make the best deal for American workers and American companies and our country. And I think he's using this threat, this billy club of a big tariff on China to get them to act, because I've talked to our trade negotiators, Ross. They're frustrated with China. You can't pin them down. One day they say they'll do one thing, the next day they do something completely different. So Trump is frustrated. I'm frustrated. I think we're all frustrated with China. They're cheaters, they're stealers, they're liars. Yeah. And I hope, because my advice to him, Mr. President, get the best deal you can now with China. The market will explode. And then in your second term, hit them hard.
Steve Moore, my friend, chief economist at the Heritage Foundation. I'm sorry you went through what you went through. I'm glad you seem in good spirits now. We'll talk with you again soon, Steve. Hang in there.
Okay, Ross. Thanks. Thanks
for
your friendship. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. Wow. All right, folks, I need to take a moment here and tell you about my fantastic